Have you ever found yourself wondering if you'll ever be able to let that thing go? That problem, that block, that pattern of resistance that has been blocking your manifestations for so long. Is it possible to let it go? Well, that's precisely what we're going to be exploring and what we're going to be letting go here today on this portion of our journey towards Destination Manifestation.
Take a step back for the ones who can't do that. Hope I separate from my past. Hope I don't just stop and crash.
Oh, all right, here we are. Episode 4? Question mark? 4. Let's say it's 4. That's what we're going with. I'm your host, Brittany Hoops. I'm back, y'all. I love this. This is fun. Podcasting is fun. Talking with y'all is fun. So let me say this. If you have already subscribed to the show, thank you so much. You traveler, you've made leaps and bounds towards your destination, and I'm happy to get you there. You were always so wonderful. So thank you for that. And if you're here for the first time, welcome, welcome. This is episode 4. And today we are unraveling a very particular fear. Maybe we've been trying to manifest this thing for a while, and yet no dice. No results. And so this fear, this issue starts to sort of compound because there's nothing worse than wanting to manifest something and yet realizing that there is something blocking you from being able to believe in it fully. And it's the fear. It's the fear. Will I be able to ever get past this block, this resistance that I'm feeling? It's the worst when you can feel it, when you know it's there, when you know it's like, okay, this is not feeling as not easy, but filled with a sense of ease and flow as it should, or as being aligned would. Because here's the thing, when we're manifestors, we usually are really good at manifesting some things in our life. Maybe you're really good at manifesting money, or you're really good at manifesting relationships. Some things come very easily to us. And then there's usually other topics that we have more resistance on. So it's like we know the feeling of what it feels like to be aligned and to be, manifesting well. And so when you can feel that you're not feeling that way about a different topic, it almost compounds it because you're like, I know I'm not doing it right. Maybe you've also experienced trauma, or you were raised a certain way that made it hard to believe that this manifestation could be possible for you. Or you've been encountering an ongoing problem, or you've had this pattern for the last 2 decades, or you have some sort of resistance, doubt, belief, whatever it is. It's that crinkly, doubtful feeling that's within you. And you might just be asking yourself, is that just it for me? Is this my fate? Or is there hope that I can let this go? And so I'll show you how you can finally get past even the biggest mental hurdles, the ones that have stuck around for a really long time, and on towards manifesting your greatest desires. That's what we're going to be focusing on here today. Now, actually, this comes at an amazing time. Let me tell you, you're not going to believe what I just found out from one of my clients from a session that I did this morning. And it was perfect timing too, right? Because it illustrates this exact situation we're discussing today. And what's so beautiful about this story is this story has come up so often. I'll just give you this example, but I could give you 10 other examples from other clients where this has been the same thing. Okay. So this particular client, we've been working together for a while now, almost a year, and we have worked on just all different types of topics. She initially found success with hypnotherapy for handling stress and overwhelm with kind of some work-life balance issues. That's what initially brought her to hypnotherapy and to coaching. But once we worked on that, once we got her feeling nice and good about that, like many of my clients that I work with ongoing, she was like, well, man, this is really cool. This really helped. There's all these other things I want to work on and improve too. Can you help me with that? And so I was like, yeah, hit me. Let's do it. Let's take them one by one. Right. And so we've just been working, essentially down the list throughout our time together. And the next thing that she wanted to work on was defining her purpose, defining her passion in life. For the last decade or so, she had been in a career, in an industry that she really truly hated, something that she just kind of fell into. She couldn't even really pinpoint how she ended up there, but she had been working and building a career, sure. But, I always think of it this way. It's like she was climbing up the corporate ladder, but what's the point of climbing up the corporate ladder if it's the wrong ladder? Like, okay, you're going to get to the top and then you're going to be someplace you don't want to be, right? And she could sense that she had been doing that for a long time, many, many, many years. And ever since the pandemic, and I'm curious if you guys can relate to this too. I know I certainly can. That what used to be tolerable, like what was just sort of everyday, like this is how life is, the pandemic just kind of turned everything on its head. And it just became even more miserable. It just became like, oh my gosh, like I cannot continue living this way. This is how she was feeling. And when she told me about it, I could tell, even just by the tone in her voice. Sure, she wanted to find her passion. Well, she wanted to find her purpose. She wanted to shift careers. But she felt like this was just kind of like a pipe dream to her. Like to ever be able to find out something that she wanted to truly do for work just sort of felt like, oh, maybe. Now she wanted the change. She really wanted it. And that's the key to hypnotherapy. Really. That's the first question I'll ask you when you book a session with me is like on a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you want this change? Because you cannot be hypnotized against your will. You have to want it. She wanted it. She just didn't believe in herself after a decade or more of not being able to pinpoint exactly what she wanted to do. She didn't feel like all of a sudden that now was going to change. Like she didn't believe in herself and her ability to be able to find that answer for her. It had been so long that she had just kind of learned to adapt to just sort of live with this every 9 hours, Monday through Friday of her every day, just sort of not counting in her life. And that's just like, I hate even like retelling the story because I get that. Like I remember myself having that same feeling and it's just the worst. Like 9 hours of every, I don't know, are we up for like 16 hours a day? Is that how much? I know there's 24, but we're sleeping a good portion of it. Like for 9 of those hours, 10 of those hours to not count, that's a big chunk of your life. It's not worth it. But now she was realizing, as she started to work with me, that it was stealing her life from her. It had been over a decade of this sort of daydreaming, this brainstorming, this wishing, this looking, trying, looking for an answer. And you know why I highlight those words? Because to try to the brain is to fail. I know I sound kind of like Yoda when I say that, but like it's true. To try is to fail. Because when you're trying, to the subconscious mind, that says that there could be an opportunity that this won't work. And so it's going to search for an opportunity where this wouldn't work because it's trying. It's not doing. Be careful of how you speak to yourself. You'll even notice if you do hypnosis with me or really any hypnotist that a lot of times they'll have you try to open your eyes. I know I can give you that command in a state of hypnosis and you will not be able to open your eyes because to try is to fail. So think of all the times in your life where you're trying, but you're actually instructing your brain to fail at such things. And that's exactly what she was doing. She was trying to search for this answer, trying to find her passion. Like it was something that was out there, outside of herself, that she was trying to find. You guys like my dramatic reenactment? If you're watching the video, I have binoculars, hand binoculars, right? That's like essentially what she was trying to do. But I explained to her exactly all of what I'm going to explain to you guys here today. And we got to work. Now, this particular client, she responded really well to hypnosis. Now, let me say this. Everyone can be hypnotized. But how quickly you respond to hypnosis is going to be up to you and your ability to A, allow yourself to relax. How much can you allow yourself to relax? And B, How much resistance do you have on this particular subject? But I would say this particular client responds very well to hypnosis, quicker than I would say the average person. So after 2 to 3 sessions, she was starting to get somewhere. She was starting to get some clarity. She was starting to feel a little bit better, a little bit more hopeful, but she wasn't 100% sure what she wanted to do, career-wise quite yet. But let me just say this. I just need to brag for like a moment. I am so stinking proud of her for sticking with that process, especially since some of the other topics that we had worked on previously, we cleared those up in just a few sessions. It was like really easy, right? And so I could see, this wasn't the case with her, but I could understand how one might, especially in our day and age, give up, because before 2 to 3 sessions completely cleared the thing. Here we're working on a new topic and 2 to 3 sessions gave her some clarity, but it wasn't like everything that she needed. She needed more support. She could have used that as evidence to support a story in her mind of, well, this just proves that I can't figure it out, that I'm broken, that it's impossible for me, right? She could have used that as evidence. But I told her, I was like, stick with me. Stick with this. This works. Stick with me. We'll get there. You just got some more resistance around this. That's all it is. And I just hate, that's like one of my most sad. It literally kills a part of my heart inside every single time I see a perfectly capable person give up on themselves too soon and then take it personally and think it's them why they're not seeing results when really they just haven't stuck with it long enough. And I was just, I was just praying that she wouldn't be this way. And luckily we had time in our program and she was in it. She knew to do the work. And so we kept on going, right? A lot of us expect these kind of instant microwave results, right? And although I will say hypnosis is quite fast in terms of comparison to a lot of modalities, definitely far faster than, traditional talk therapy. It took her, I would say, about double the normal length. It took her about 6 sessions in total in order for her to completely identify and get on board with what was the next chapter of her life, of shifting careers and moving forward, like for real, not just a daydream, actually taking action on this. And so now, of course, I have to say this, every person is different. So whenever I give examples on this podcast, you have to remember everyone is different. But for her, it was about 6 sessions over the course of 2 months while listening to her custom hypnosis audio recordings in between. And wow. We just, like I said, we get a session earlier today and she just put in her 2 weeks notice and she's actually doing it. Like she's actually following her dreams. It isn't just a dream up here anymore. It's a reality. It's coming into fruition and it's life-changing. She's excited. She believes in her capability. She's not just sitting there waiting and wondering. She knows now. But seriously, just think about this. Over a decade of daily drudgery and second guessing herself, of brainstorming and trying and thinking and coming up short. We shifted all of that over the course of 2 months. Would you trade 2 months of work on yourself to undo years and years and years and years and years worth of strife? Would you? I know my answer, but again, I'm biased, right? I love this work. I would. Like, are you kidding me? That's like the best investment ever. Like the return on that investment is like, okay, I can trade in 2 months to get back 10 years. Yeah, sign me up, right? You can get more money. This is how I always think of it. You can get more money, but you cannot get more time. And so I just wanted to share this with you guys. Congrats to her. Thank you for giving me permission to share this story. It was the coolest feeling to see her so freaking excited and to see that shift, because I remember what it was like when this was not even an option for her, when she was so blocked off from this being something she could allow in for so long. And she's just blown away. It's like we feel like we're time benders, we're time warping in kind of the best way possible. So let me share with you what I told her, right? What kind of helped get some of these shifts, especially if you've been feeling a similar way and you've been feeling that way for a while. Point number 1, Just because you haven't yet doesn't mean you won't ever. Think about it. Any skill we've developed here in life, we started from zero. Anything. I mean, literally, maybe not breathing, but even then, there was a point in time where our lungs hadn't developed yet in the womb and we could not breathe, you know? I'm just thinking about this right now because my sweet husband, he's learning how to play piano. You know, we're in our young 30s. He's learning a new skill. He's learning how to play piano right now. And I just love that because sometimes we sort of fall into this fallacy that we think that if we didn't learn how to do X, Y, and Z before we were, 23 years old, it's too late for us. And that just couldn't be further from the truth. All skills are new to us at one point in time. Sure, there are some skills that we learn early in life, like breathing and eating and walking and talking, right? And there are other skills that come later, or maybe even never come at all, right? Learning how to drive, depending on where you live. Thinking is a skill, and we don't often see it that way. And I actually just talked about this briefly in the episode right before this, episode 3. Thinking is a skill. And to be quite honest, thinking deliberately, honing our thoughts, focusing our attention on thoughts that are in alignment with our goals and our dreams, it isn't usually a skill that we're taught. And it's because for most of our lives, we're just sort of conditioned to believe that what happens out around us sort of happens to us. And that it's all just kind of sort of random and, maybe you're lucky or these other things, right? And we have to react to what has already been created, we know, by our thoughts. And then we just go from there. We're so reactionary. And this is why I like to teach my clients the skill of responding as opposed to reacting, right? And that's can be a whole other episode, to tell you the truth. That's what it means to think deliberately. But as manifestors, we realize that it is a whole lot more fun. It is a whole lot more delicious than that. We know that our thoughts create things. Our thoughts create our reality. And so you can see how important, how vitally important the skill of thinking is to manifesting. If we can master that skill of thinking, that skill of focus, then we can master the reality that we create around us. We can be deliberate with that. And so just because you've had this problem, this resistance, whatever it might be, for a long time, it doesn't mean that you can't start to think differently about it. But it does mean that you'll need to learn a new skill. The new skill of thinking for creation, not thinking in reaction, but thinking to create what you want so that you can think differently about this situation. Because really, if you've had resistance for such a long time, that just means you've been thinking the same way for a really long time. And it's just sort of compounded and it's created momentum around that, right? It's solidified that thought. But this is the thing. You can learn new skills at any time. That is the beauty of being human. We can learn new skills. In fact, that's a huge part. I would say that's the biggest form of training we do in my one-on-one programs is teaching and learning the skill of deliberate thinking. And hypnosis is kind of like, what would I say? Kind of like the training wheels for learning that skill of deliberate thinking, right? You listen to your daily hypnosis audio recordings. I provide several in my program, one of which is a custom recording that's created, written, and recorded specifically for you, no one else. And I mean, really, if you think about it, hypnosis, you listen to that audio recording, you're hearing my voice talk to you. And what I'm doing is I'm offering thoughts. It's kind of like, if a singing teacher was like, ah, please do not, this is not a singing podcast. But, and then you were like told like, oh, okay, like, copy my voice. Ah, right. And then they'd be like, oh no, try it again. It's actually, ah. And then you're like, okay, copy. Ah, right. And you would copy it, right? You're doing that with me. Thank God I'm not singing to you, but you're doing that with me. I offer you a thought like you are capable. And then you're like, oh, okay, I am capable. And I'm like, yeah, you are capable. And you're like, okay, I am capable. And we're creating through hypnosis and that deep state of relaxation, we're creating the new neural pathways where that can become an automatic thought for you at the subconscious level. And so I say a thought, then you think it. And it's like doing crunches in the gym, right? You do enough crunches again and again and again. You're training your muscles to grow big and strong. And it's the same thing through hypnosis. You practice deliberate thinking, which is hypnosis, in a deeply relaxed trance state, and you're training your subconscious mind to think new thoughts automatically until those new neural pathways become so big and strong and you have six-pack brain abs. It's the skill of thinking and believing in ways that support your dreams and the positive changes and the manifestations that you want in life. Here's point number 2. To the brain, the only time is ever right now. And it's a little like, maybe it's like a little sad and melancholy to think of it this way, especially if you're nostalgic about happy moments from your past. But all that ever remains from our past are the thoughts that we continue to think about it. And maybe like a few visual sort of shapes and colors and images that you've sort of taken a snapshot of in your mind's eye, which I need to point out to you are just our thoughts about it. We've created it and we've saved that version. It's not actually like the live footage that's getting saved. It's our brain interpreted version that's getting saved. It's kind of like the best way I could describe it is like, imagine if you sat down in front of a 6-year-old artist. Okay. And I'm talking an average 6-year-old, not like some genius TikTok artist 6-year-old. Okay. An average 6-year-old artist, to get your, portrait painted. Okay. That's kind of how our brain is with memories. It's like the 6-year-old painting version where you're like, okay, sure. That kind of looks like a female face. Is it me? Is it somebody else? Is it a dog? I don't know. Right. That's your brain creating memories is the equivalent of that. So this is what the brain is accessing when you think about this resistance or this thing that you've experienced that may feel like it's blocking your energetic alignment with your manifestations. The brain cannot live in the past. It only ever lives in the present moment. So when you say that there's a block from your past that is blocking your manifestations, what you really mean is that when you think about your manifestation, what you want, the positive changes you want, what you're actually doing is you're going back in your mind. You're pulling out that 6-year-old videotape of that past event. You're pressing play on it in the present moment, and you're thinking about that in the present moment. And so your present moment thoughts are filled with your old thinking. It's kind of like the equivalent of reheating and eating leftovers. Okay. Now some leftovers, like, leftover pizza. All right. I like it cold. I know some people don't feel this way, so I wouldn't reheat it. I'd eat it cold, but some leftovers can be good and yummy, right? Some leftovers can actually dominate an entire Big Brother season. No, I'm just kidding. Oops, sorry. Okay. Big Brother people know what I'm talking about. Okay. Some leftovers are good. Others can go sour. They can go moldy, right? Leftovers kind of did that in the end in Big Brother too. In which case, those leftovers are not helpful for your body or your stomach if you continue to eat them. So what thoughts about your past do you continue to think? What thoughts have gone sour? What thoughts are moldy and yet you're still chomping on them, right? Because you only ever have the present moment. You have a clean plate, a clean slate. Which thoughts do you want to feed your brain? Fresh, organic, vibrant, healthy thoughts of the future and how you want it to be, or old, lukewarm, moldy leftovers of the past? You get to decide. Now, let me say this. In the case of true PTSD and trauma, of course, I am not a mental health professional, so please seek out mental health professional help for those things. But there is research and studies that have shown that your brain may not have classified these memories in the appropriate area. So they may be sort of stuck in that fight or flight part of your brain, which is the amygdala part of the mind. And we can actually use hypnosis. I've done this with clients, many clients, to help that memory feel a little bit more distanced, to create a little bit more distance. Right now, it's like stuck there in like the fight or flight present moment part of the brain. We want to add some distance to it so that it's no longer painful. Of course, you'll always have the memory. You can't erase memories. You'll know that it was bad at the time, but the you that exists in the present moment won't be stuck there now. And so we can allow another part of the brain called the hippocampus to calm the amygdala down and allow that experience and that event that caused that fear or that trauma response to become sort of a normal memory. And therefore, it no longer causes you anxiety or panic or flashbacks or whatever it might be. That's like a whole other episode. It's kind of its own separate thing and would need more time to cover. But for the most part, for most resisti, I don't know, is that the plural of resistances? For most things that we are resisting, our brain is a fresh slate, always, only ever in the present moment. And so which thoughts from your past or otherwise will serve you in the future? Start serving up, start focusing on those to move in the direction of your dreams. One last thing to think about here. Notice too that this fear is just a thought. And thoughts carry a frequency and attract more to your life of what you're thinking of. That's why we don't want to be reactionary to what's around us. I always think of our current 3D reality is like old crusty manifestations, like the results of old crusty thoughts. I look at this plant here. Maybe I'll show you since I'm on my video. I look at this plant and and what created it was the thought of what I should put on my Christmas list. Okay. And then I manifested it because my brother got it for me. Right? I wanted something alive in my office. And I said, well, for Christmas, I'll have a plant. And then I got a plant. Okay. Like it's done. I'm not having thoughts about it now. I'm not creating new plans. I don't have thoughts about it anymore. When we have thoughts about a pattern, what do we manifest? More of the pattern, more of the resistance, the exact opposite of what we actually want to attract. So let's just examine this a little bit, okay? And I want you to think about the thought that you are having, the thought that's creating this fear within you if you've been dealing with this for a long time. So I'm going to use an example, but I want you to think of your own example. Let's take an example. Let's say you want to manifest 100K in your business this year, but you've been stuck in this pattern of procrastinating and scrolling social media and your phone is like, you look at the recaps and it's like, yeah, you spent 4 hours on Instagram today or, 4 hours on TikTok. And you're like, really? I mean, those 4 hours, you could have really used those. Like those are hours you need towards new generative projects. And you're doing this primarily when you're feeling overwhelmed, right? When you don't know what to do about your business, you're just picking up the phone out of habit. And you've been doing this for a long time, maybe since college, where you would waste time not studying for exams and then you would sort of cram at the last minute. And it might have worked for you then. It might have been a pattern that was established then, but it's not working for you now in your dreams and building your business. So you have this fear, and this fear is the thought, I'm never going to be able to break this pattern. That's the fear. That's the thought. And so when you think that thought, the question is, when you think that thought, how do you feel? In this example, maybe hopeless. At this point, it just kind of feels like a part of who you are and how you work. You can't really remember any other way. And so what do? When you're there thinking, I'm never going to break this pattern, feeling hopeless, what do? That's what fuels you wanting to whip out the phone and some more, right? And scroll some more. I mean, hell, if there's no hope to this, if you're feeling hopeless, then why do anything productive? What does one more hour matter if there's no hope? Of course, what you want to do is work on your business because you want that moolah. You want that money, right? You know that there are projects that could help bring that in, but you are not at the energetic frequency to conduct those projects. because those projects don't exist on the plane of hopeless. You got a frequency of hopeless created by that fearful thought, and then you have the frequency of successful projects, and they are not matching. They're not matching. If you're watching the video version, my twinkle fingers are helping you visualize this. They're not matching, okay? At least not successful money-making projects. Think about that for a second. There might be a project in your business that matches the frequency of hopeless. And so you might do all this work and it might be this whole thing and you can do the work hopeless. And it will feel very hard and it will feel very disappointing and no one's going to sign up for your group program and no one's going to sign up for this, right? That's a hopeless project. That's what you manifest when you're at the frequency of hopeless. So all the money-making projects are not at that frequency though, even though projects could be along the whole spectrum. I think that's a really interesting thing to think about because I think sometimes we think, oh, well, like nothing will manifest. You might manifest the thing. It's just not going to be the successful version of that thing. How many projects have you tackled from a frequency that wasn't conducive to their success? Ooh, that one hits in the gut, doesn't it? That question. And even if this person in this example tried to start these projects from a hopeless state, the projects would feel like hell. But in this case, she's not. She's not even doing the projects, right? She's just scrolling her phone. What's created then? When you do that action, what's created? In this example, it's just a continuation of the pattern. She manifests more of what she's thinking about. Exactly what she's thinking, which is, I'm never going to be able to break this pattern. And then ding, ding, ding. Sure enough, manifest that. Oh, okay. You're thinking the thought, I'm never going to break this pattern. Your brain, the universe, your energetics is it's working 100% perfectly. It is purely going to deliver to you what you're thinking, which is never breaking the pattern, continuing the pattern. And she doesn't break it. She just starts the scroll right again. She's the perfect energetic match to her thoughts. And I actually kind of love that. I mean, think about that. I kind of love that because I'll have clients that come to me and they're like, I'm broken. Like something's wrong with me. I'm not manifesting. And I'm like, oh no, your manifestation is working spot on. You're a great manifester. It's just your thoughts are sucky. And so that's why you're manifesting sucky things. Your manifesting ability is spot on though. We just need to make sure you're feeding the right stuff into the manifestation machine so you can get the output that you want. So what I might ask this hypothetical, and I'm just making up this example, but this hypothetical person is what I'll ask you. This thought, what are you making it mean about you? What are you making it mean about you? What's the story that's attached to this thought? How have you started to take this thought personally? Making it about you. Because let me tell you, the longer this thought sticks around, the more apt you are to adopt it into your own identity. If we think it enough, it becomes a part of how we see ourselves. That's why confident people think thoughts that they're good and capable. I mean, it's kind of like the chicken before the egg. Which came first, right? The thought or the confidence? It was the thought. The thought created the sense of confidence. And then they thought that enough and enough and enough that it became embedded into their identity. And identity is really just thoughts that you continually think about yourself. So what are you making this thought mean about you? I'm never going to break this pattern. Perhaps she's making it mean that she's the kind of person who procrastinates and can't ever reach the top of her goals. She gets so close. She's at 80K. She's at 90K, but she always falls short. She's made it mean that she's the kind of person that always falls short. Well, if those are the kind of thoughts she's thinking, that's instructing her brain to always fall short. And so she's going to get really close, but then there's always going to be that self-sabotage, which is what we tackled last episode 3, that's going to cause her to fall short. Ouch. And currently she's right. Like, I mean, if we're looking at it objectively, the way you think about yourself, you're like nearly always right because that's what you continue to manifest. So understanding all of this is so vital. And then we unpack it. We examine it. We really internalize what that thought about the resistance, what that thought about the pattern is actually manifesting for you, for her. And we can work to shift through it and find a thought that serves you better. So let me leave you with this. It all comes down to, do you believe it's possible for you to grow and change? Do you? Do you believe it's possible for you? Now, sometimes I have clients who come to me for one reason. Let's just use money manifestation for an example, or success in their business. But ultimately, we figure out after we start working together that we have to work on their belief in their ability to be able to change before we can ever tackle anything else. I mean, that is the primary block to anything. Because if you don't believe you can even make positive changes, what are you going to manifest? You're going to manifest the lack of being able to make positive changes, which is no results on anything. You literally will not be able to attract those positive changes. So it's the ultimate block. It's the first thing to address, kind of the moat that's surrounding the beautiful princess castle. And once you soften that resistance to that, once your idea of yourself becomes more open, more optimistic, once you remain more curious about what you're capable of, less rigid, then you're cooking. Then you can start to focus on moving into sort of net positive territory and all the fun and yummy manifestation stuff. That's when you can focus. But so many of us are like focused on the manifestation, but we don't have the belief in ourselves first. And so you're never going to be able to get on the other side of that moat. You got to cross the moat first. You have to get to neutral first. And that requires the belief in yourself and your ability to change. All right, that's another one for the books. Thank you, Destination Manifestation Travelers. You are incredible. You are capable. Please remember it. And if you haven't done so already, be sure to subscribe to this podcast, because next week we're going to be answering a very interesting question. The question of, what if I'm nervous to manifest positive changes because of the impact that they may have on my friends or my family? What if your manifestations aren't just going to impact you? They're going to impact other people. We might want these changes, but we have to sort of weigh the impact of those changes on the ones we love. We'll explore all of that. Very interesting. So we'll tackle that in episode 5, the upcoming episode. Okay. And one other thing I want you to please do after listening to this episode is this. Visit BrittanyHoops.com/manifestation audio. I'll link to it in the show notes. That's where you're going to find like literally the best resource based on what we talked about here today. It's a free hypnosis audio that's going to help you do so much of what we talked about, especially on the belief front. It's a free recording, guys. I mean, that's pretty great. I see hypnosis recordings out there that you have to pay quite a bit for. And this is like a 20-minute recording that I created just for y'all to give you a taste of what hypnosis is like and how you can use it for manifestation. So check it out, download it, listen to it, change your life. It's as easy as that. All right, I'll catch you next time. I hope after this episode, you're feeling light, you're feeling free, you're feeling ready to let go of decades worth of resistance. You'll have to let me know. All music for this podcast is by A Cubed. And be sure to download that hypnosis audio. It's a good one. I use it every day. All right, see you next time.
I don't